I take this opportunity to welcome everyone to our webinar today. And today's theme, the webinar is mainly to celebrate or to commemorate the International Women's Day, which is meant to be tomorrow, the 8th of March, 2023. But for us, we felt that we like to do this on the eve of the International Women's Day so that we can usher in the International Women's Day on the 8th with content and with insights from our various key panelists who are going to talk on various issues around gender equity, gender equality, gender involvement as far as the control of vector-borne diseases is concerned. So welcome our participants, welcome our key panelists, various speakers, and welcome our facilitators who are going to moderate this panel. Today's webinar is mainly tailor-made to understand the role of women in the control of vector-borne diseases. And we are looking at how can we make Vision 2030 a reality. For us at PAMCA, we are very key and we are focused and very purposive to ensure involvement of women in the fight against vector-borne diseases, not only just malaria, but diseases that are caused or transmitted by vectors. So with me on this panel, we are going to have Dr. Corinne Karema, who is the interim CEO of Rollback Malaria Partnership to End Malaria, and she's based in Rwanda. We're going to have Dr. Jeshri Raman, Principal Medical Scientist from South Africa. We are going also to have Dr. Yasin, who's the founder and executive director of Speak Up Africa. She's based currently at Senegal. And then we are to have our young and upcoming research scientist, Dr. Edith Chepkoril Limbaso, who's a research scientist based at Cambridge, Kenya. And also our male ally, Professor Charles Wonji, who is the executive director at CREED, that's in Cameroon, and also a professor at LSTM. So my panelists and participants, it will be a moment of us to be able to look at the various issues surrounding involvement of women in vector-borne diseases in line with the theme of International Women's Day, which is innovation, which says Digital, innovation and technology for gender equality. So we are going to see how have we innovated as far as involvement of women in vector control is concerned, and more so, what are those key issues that we need to address as far as making Vision 2030, especially diseases such as malaria, which we aim in the African continent to control by 2030. The objective of this webinar is to be able to share and learn the various experiences, insights, and development journeys of global women leaders, that's our panelists, and also men allies, in order for us to be able to create an enabling environment for women to thrive in as far as vector-borne disease control and eventual elimination is concerned. So this is gonna be a brief webinar for 1.5 hours. We'll be having discussions, but we are going to start with opening remarks from my colleague, Dr. Emma Orefua, who's going to tell us briefly what the PAMCA is doing as far as gender inclusivity and involvement is concerned. And then Dr. Corinne will give a keynote address, and thereafter we'll have our various panelists discussing with the moderation from my colleagues, Jessie Ogupeo and Ms. Christina Sudi, who are the coordinators for the Women in Vector Control at PAMCA. And thereafter, we'll have an overview from my colleague, Rosalia Joseph, and a wrap-up of the webinar. So you are invited to ask any questions using our Q&A option that is there in the Zoom. Kindly keep on posting your questions there, and we'll be able to address them as we go. So ladies and gentlemen, kindly allow me to invite my colleague, Dr. Emma Orefua, to kindly give our remarks.
Thank you, Damaris. Welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today and to be sharing this space with such powerful women and gentlemen. For those of you who don't know PAMCA, we are a membership organization, African-led, and we are working on our vision, which is an Africa free of vector-borne diseases. And the way in which we do this is through 3 different work streams, or strategic pillars, shall I say. So we're keen on fostering collaborations and partnerships, but also supporting knowledge management. So that is the data acquisition, storage and analysis of data for informed decision-making around vector control initiatives, but also capacity building as well. And this is where the Women in Vector Control program fits in. We see this as a cross-cutting issue. And the Women in Vector Control program was, I would say, initiated around 2018, spearheaded by Damaris, who has been a fantastic champion for gender equity within PAMCA, but also supported by many other women behind the scenes. I'd also like to pay homage to Teresia Inkia, who was instrumental in the genesis of the Women in Vector Control program several years ago. And this came about through our lived experience. So I know that talking about women is in fashion and it's the topic du jour, but really all of us who are women were operating within this space. We have nuanced challenges that are specific to us as women, as African women. And we wanted to see how PAMCA could support and empower the inclusion of more women in our initiatives. We cannot talk about ending vector-borne diseases and ending malaria if we ignore 50% of the population. So it's very important that we mainstream gender inclusivity into everything that we do. We live this, we breathe this, and I'm really happy to see that there's such a good turnout today. This means that there's more interest and prominence growing in this space. And I think every time me and Damaris, we go to meetings, we are deluged and we are approached by so many women and men who are really interested in what can be done to support more women. I think that there are easy things to talk about in this space, such as technical capacity building of women, but there's also the things that are the elephants in the room, which we sometimes struggle to talk about. So the bullying aspects, the sexual harassment, but the more that we talk about it, the more that we can face these challenges. And so I'm happy to see, and certainly over the last few years, more and more women are becoming vocal on gender inclusivity and the challenges. And I encourage everyone here to listen to the challenges, listen to the dialogue, listen to the solutions. We want to move beyond virtual signaling and talking about the problems to what is it we can do in our institutions, in our organizations, in the chapters and regional centers of excellence. We want to move beyond the talk and we need to be active. And that's also for us as PAMCA as well. We need to see more women representation in our chapters, on our board, in all the initiatives that we do. And so this is an ongoing process, but we are all committed. So please do reflect, speak to your women colleagues, speak to your male allies. I'm really looking forward to the discussion that we're going to have. Please take it away, digest, and please contact us if you'd like to support the initiative going forward. So I'll stop there because I'm interested in the meat of the discussion today. Thank you, Damaris. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, Emma. That's for highlighting the genesis of Women in Vector Control and the support PAMCA is giving. We'll go to our next speaker, our keynote address, which is going to be given by none other than our colleague and friend, Dr. Corinne Karema, who's going to talk about the gender approach to the fight against malaria and cite the experience she's gotten on our leadership under Rollback Malaria. Welcome, Dr. Corinne Karema.
Yeah, thank you very much, and apologies. So first of all, I would like to thank PAMCA as well as the Women in Vector Control for inviting me on behalf of the RBM Partnership to End Malaria. It's really a great pleasure for me to be on this panel with, this is really a powerful house. And I also thank Professor Wonji to be with us, and we can't do without the allies and our brothers and partners. So the most important, I think, message for me, it's PAMCA, it's really an example of local solution for local problem. And in addition, I really commend you for being a gender responsive as well as transformative program in the fight against malaria, as well as especially in vector control. So before I start my presentation, I wanted just to give you a brief on who we are. So the ABM Partnership to End Malaria, we are a global platform that coordinates and convenes partners in the fight against malaria. So we have more than 500 partners that includes malaria endemic countries, bilateral, multilateral, development partners, donors, private sector, NGOs, community, foundation, as well as research and academic institutions, all that are really engaged and committed to respond to the fight against malaria. So of course, our vision, which is shared also with PAMCA. So we want to have a world free from malaria. And for that, we have a strategic plan that is running up to 2025, which has 3 objectives, which first is to optimize all the implementation of malaria. The second one is to maximize the resource. So we are also doing resource mobilization. And then the third one, we are also facilitate the deployment and the scale up of innovation, as well as all the innovative tools that are needed to end malaria. I don't know why. Okay. Yeah. So in terms of the gender approach, I would like, first of all, maybe to talk about who are we women, especially in regards to malaria. As you know, we are bearing the health, societal, and economic brands of malaria. First of all, we are the most affected, especially you will see that for malaria, pregnant women, as well as children and then adolescent girls are vulnerable group. Second, we are also caregivers. So when there is someone sick at home, when there is a child who is sick, usually it's the mother, the sister, the auntie, and the grandmother who usually take care of the child. And then we are also providing care. And especially, it's really important to say that malaria is really severely affecting women and adolescents. So for instance, when you look at the data of 2021, you will see that we had 13.3 million pregnant women that had malaria. And we all know the consequences and the impact of malaria on pregnancy. So there are miscarriages, there is stillbirth, so there's many issues that's even affecting the future of the child in terms of the development. And then as well as also we having an impact on the increasing the number of deaths. And then of course, malaria and poverty, as well as when you look at the impact of malaria, it's really giving up to 50% of school absentees in Africa. And usually that is really affecting the member of the family. And then unfortunately, I only have data of 2016 that was showing that malaria was the 5th largest killer of adolescent girls in sub-Saharan Africa. And as I was saying, women are spending a lot of time, the number of days when there is a child who is sick, and because they have to take care of the sick, the patient. And then we also, as I say, we are also basically the spine and the neck of the global health. And when we look at the data, you will see that 70% of global healthcare and social care workforces is made up of women. But unfortunately, only 1 out of 4 have a senior leadership role. And then the women contribution in terms of the global health system is really so powerful that it is estimated to be 5% of the global GDP. So you can't see how important are women, but unfortunately, this is and pay approximately $1 trillion. And then, of course, when we look at the level of the community, women community health workers spend 4 times more many hours on unpaid work compared to men. And I believe that if we are here today, this is something that we need to advocate for us to change. And then in terms of the barriers that women are facing, of course, it's not only for malaria, it's also for other infectious diseases, as well as non-communicable diseases, but it really affects the ability to take care of themselves as well as the family. And this is how you see how the gender dynamics is really not influencing how women are seeking healthcare on a timely manner, but it's also affecting how they can even benefit from the malaria control intervention, being a bed net or as well as just a basic treatment for malaria. In some contexts, women have to have the approval or the permission from the head of the household or the partner for them to go for sick treatment, as well as to be accompanied to the health center or the community health worker so that they can also be treated. And then, of course, there are a lot of stigma, a lot of taboo associated not only to pregnancy, even everywhere. And I'm sure for all the women that are in this webinar, I'm sure you have been facing in one way all the stigma and taboo related to the gender basis. So what is good is WHO has developed a gender responsive assessment scale, which I think that will help countries as well as everyone, NGOs and all the partners, to move from a gender unequal programs and then to become really a gender transformative and empower women, as we are seeing today, especially with PAMCA. So it's just an assessment scale that look at the way a program or a policy is developed, and then if it's really a gender responsive policy, if it's consider all the gender, the norms, the role and relation, and then it's also looking at the policies as well as programs that are not just gender sensitive or gender specific, but are also gender transformative. So trying to take active measure to reduce all the harmful effects of gender. So for us, if we want to eradicate malaria, it's really important that we apply a gender lens to malaria work, and it's really essential. So the first one, it's really important that we enable all the policymakers to better understand the impact of malaria on women and adolescents. Of course, for that, we need data, but the issue that we are having is we don't have enough gender disaggregated information on malaria for us to take decision. And so it's really very important that we better develop and target policy so that we can even focus our investments, tailor our intervention for us to have a greater impact and also improve all the malaria-related outcome on women as well as adolescent girls and all the words. And then the third one is a gender sensitive policy. We need to increase equitable access and improve uptake to malaria intervention. We have seen that, for instance, for the IPTP, we have not done much progress in terms of increasing the coverage of women that are taking their pill during pregnancy. And it's really important that we sit and brainstorm and see what are needed for us to improve this intervention that has been done for, that has been a policy, WHO policy for many years, but we don't see much impact, as we have seen, for instance, with the increase of the mosquito net coverage. And then the last one is also very important, that we minimize a long-term leadership economic cost of malaria on women, and it's really important that we advance the gender equality to help break the cycle of poverty, because if we don't break that, we are going to go back and we will never eradicate malaria. So this is my last message. It's important and it's timely that for us to act. And what is really good, we have a great opportunity. So the Rollback Malaria brings diverse partners together, and that helping us to amplify the voices of women and girls in the fight against malaria. So for me, there are 5 key messages. Number 1, we need to acknowledge the disproportionate burden of malaria on women and adolescents. The second one is we need data. We need data to target and then to have a gender responsive policy and program. And for that, it's really important that we get gender disaggregated data. And then the third one is it's really important that women are sitting on the table of decision making. It's really important if we want to eradicate malaria, we need women in the decision making role so that we can target and be comfortable of all the gender norms that we are doing in empowering women will help us to take the decision so that we can also be sure that all the intervention that we are doing in malaria, all the strategies and approaches are really benefiting themselves and their family. And then the last one, which is the very important one, is it's important that we pay women as we pay men. And for all the work that they are doing as part of the malaria eradication, as well as in the global health, where we are having 70% that is made up by women, it's really important that they get paid as their brothers. So I would like to thank you very much for this. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Corinne. That's quite elaborate and informative. We'll quickly move. Kindly, members, if you have any questions, just post them or reserve them. We'll have all the discussions the questions immediately after the webinar. So right now, I'd like to hand over to my colleagues who are moderating the next session of panelists. I'll hand over to Dr. Jessie Gupeo and Dr. Christine Sudi. Kindly take up.
Thank you, Damaris, and thank you, Dr. Corinne, for this wonderful keynote address. So now it's time for it. Now it's time to hear success stories and motivational words from our esteemed speakers. And we'll start with Dr. Yassine Djibo. Dr. Yassine, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you for having me on this panel.
Yeah, we are also happy to have you here today. So I have a question. So given your background and yes, so in the African continent, what are the strategies and in place to increase women engagement in the fight against vector-borne diseases?
Thank you very much for the question, and happy International Women's Day to all in advance. I would like first to really highlight a lot of what Dr. Corinne shared with us, and I think she made a very good recap of some key recommendations and some of the key issues that we face. Maybe a few words on Speak Up Africa. We are a policy and advocacy action tank and really dedicated to catalyzing leadership, enabling policy change, and increasing awareness for sustainable development in Africa more broadly, and more specifically focusing on health and malaria. And for us, addressing gender inequality and human rights related barriers are an integral part of our strategy, and we are really committed to being able to meaningfully champion gender equality through 3 guiding principles. The first one is really around consistency and ensuring that national and international gender policies and strategies that already exist are used, and it's critical for all of us to understand them, to use them as our guiding documents, but also to work within countries to strengthen these strategies and policies to ensure that we have ownership and consistency. The second principle is around respect for human rights and really how important it is to analyze gender equity and equality across all of the interventions that are done, and to be able to do that systematically in the design and monitoring of programs. And finally, around equity and really ensuring that we're taking into account the specific human resources needs included when we're recruiting, managing, and working within programs, and that we're assigning roles and responsibilities. And again, as Dr. Corinne mentioned earlier on, that we're ensuring also equal pay for women as we do for men. And in terms of strategic orientations to consider, it's really to accelerate capacity strengthening. We've discussed this, but really around leadership development program for women and girls so that they have the skills, knowledge, confidence, public speaking, and technical trainings that they need. Have strong institutional systems for vector control diseases for better taken into account gender and social inclusion, to be able to ensure that we strengthen the consideration of gender and social inclusion in all vector control interventions. And finally, to be able to create an enabling environment for gender mainstreaming to ensure that we have the appropriate policies at national, regional, and global levels for vector-borne diseases. And maybe the last point is around providing access to financial resources for women and girls working on vector control. Often we talk about capacity strengthening, but without financial resources, it is very difficult for them to be able to adequately implement programs. Thank you.
I have a follow-up question. So it's mainly focused on where you are currently working. No, so as the name of your organization, Speak Up Africa, you are the founder. So how have you helped women to overcome the cultural norms in decision-making and leadership?
Thank you. At Speak Up Africa, gender equality is at the core of what we do, and we believe that it's an essential foundation for a healthy economy and a prosperous nation, and it is vital for our collective success to be able to ensure that women meaningfully contribute. And we've seen historically that women have largely been excluded from decision-making spaces and programs that affect their health and well-being. And at Speak Up Africa, we believe that voice, participation, and leadership is vital for the empowerment of women. And that's why one of the programs we've launched is the African Leaders Campaign, to really be able to support the inclusion of women and girls on public platforms and in leadership roles in order to be able to encourage them to significantly participate in these decision-making spaces, but also to give them the tools and the platforms that they need. We also recognize that empowering civil society organizations and community-based organizations and network is critical to be able to ensure that no one is left behind in terms of access to healthcare services. And for us, one of the main initiatives that we've launched to be able to ensure that this happens at the community level is the Voix Essentielles initiative, which is an initiative that works with community-based organization and women leaders in 3 countries in West Africa. And to date, we've been able to work with 35 organizations, not only to strengthen their capacity by providing them with technical assistance, but also providing them with financial resources and providing them with leadership development to be able to ensure that they have the capacities they need to be able to engage in policies and programs that affect their health and well-being. And finally, we also work, and this I think is very aligned with the theme of this year's International World Women's Day, is around the Women's Innovators Incubator. And this program was launched as a result of a realization that we had when we worked on the African Young Innovators for Health Award with the International Federation of Pharmaceutical Companies, where we were working to celebrate the work of young entrepreneurs across Africa. And one thing we learned with the process is that women were not able to access this type of award as easily as men. Out of the 301 applications that we received, only 22% were from women. And of the 15 that were pre-selected, only 3 were from female applicants. And so when we realized that there was such a big gender imbalance, we developed a dedicated program called Women in Innovation Award to be able to provide these female entrepreneurs and innovators with financial support, mentorship, media training, advice on IP protection, and access to a network to be able to allow them to be able to realize their full potential. And we feel that these are the types of initiatives that need to be further promoted and supported to be able to get women innovators to be in the same position as male innovators. And finally, I think with PAMCA, which I would like to thank, I am one of the mentors within the mentorship program, and very delighted to be able to also give back and support other women leaders and share experiences with them to be able to further develop our respective professional journeys.
Yes, thank you. Actually, the student that you are mentoring is really, really happy to have you. So, Yassine, now focusing on vector-borne disease, what are the unique challenges that African women face within the control of vector-borne disease that maybe some may not realize or consider? Because we know that we have different cultural differences, and what do you think can be the challenges that other people may not realize or consider?
Thank you. So I think, as I mentioned, I mean, first and foremost, there's a lot of imbalances that we see within this space around men and women, and being able to access, funding, to be able to access professional networks, to be able to get the training and skills development and overall participation, which are all key ingredients for women engagement in the fight against vector-borne diseases. Specifically, I think the ones we don't see is that we often underestimate the difficulties that are associated with linguistic and cultural differences. And so we sometimes take those for granted, but often, we see that, a lot of the discussions and conversations happen in English or in French, but not necessarily in local languages. And then in Africa specifically, we often see some very big cultural differences that are not necessarily taken into account. So I think it's important for all of us to proactively find mechanisms to be able to engage all of the women and girls, despite their cultural context and in all of their diversity. Finally, I think we, and this was also a point that Corinne mentioned earlier on, we do see significant gender differences in time spent on unpaid household caregiving duties, community health work, and this is often not taken into account. As was mentioned, women face more than 4 times the number of days spent on caregiving for malaria cases in a household compared to men. We also see that women community healthcare workers spend 4 times as many hours of unpaid work compared to men. So these are really some of the challenges that I see in terms of what needs to be addressed. And certainly, I think through a lot of these platforms that we have today, and networks such as the one of PAMCA and other stakeholders, it will really help us address these significantly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yassine. Thank you. So I will invite Dr. Jayashree Raman. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hope you can hear me.
Perfect, perfect. We would like to hear from you as well. Now, you as a molecular biologist with interest in novel techniques and technologies for malaria, what has been your experiences regarding the involvement of women in this field?
In fact, it's very frustrating, and particularly on 2 levels. First of all, it very much mirrors what we see in the global health field. There's a lot of women involved, but they don't have a seat at the major table in decision making. And it really does frustrate me, because they often see women as being very good in the lab, so they'll just do the lab work, whereas the men will make all the decisions, and they'll be also the ones that run the lab. So trying to get, and I think this is my second point of frustration, is trying to get female molecular biologists to head labs and move on from a PhD or a postdoc, but to actually go on to run a lab, to have an impact in decision making or innovation in terms of malaria or anything like that. And it really comes down to women not being seen as being leaders in this field. They can work really well in the lab, but they need sort of supervision from a male, which, you know, really does frustrate me. And in this day and age, we still see that. And the other thing I think as well with molecular biology that I find very challenging, and I'm seeing it more and more frequently now, is that people tend to regard it as a academic exercise, and they don't see it as being something that can actually have a major impact in malaria control and malaria elimination now. They see it as research and not something that is relevant for decision making. And I think that's something that we as women need to be much stronger about, to show that it can have an impact, and it is really important to include molecular biology techniques in the innovation pool moving forward, because without them, I don't think we can achieve elimination.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jashri. Christina, can you
Yes,
hear
Jessie,
me?
can you hear me?
It's
Can you
better.
hear me now? Okay.
Better.
Now it's time for Professor Charles Wonji, the only man in the panel, and our man, Ali. Professor Charles, can you share with us your experience? Because we know that there is a lot of focus on the urgency of women when it comes to overcoming gender bias. However, we know that we must engage men who tend to occupy positions in the authority or in the leadership. What does it mean to you to be a male ally? And why is it important to do this?
Yes, thank you for allowing me to share with you my experience. I will first of all say that I really believe that women need to play a bigger role in the field of malaria control, vector control particularly, because they have a lot to give. I myself, I have benefited from it, because when I did my postdoc, I was actually under the mentorship of two great ladies, Professor Janet Hemingway and Professor Janet Hilary Ranson. And the type of mentorship they gave me really allowed me to be the scientist I am today. So it just shows what women can do. And myself, I was lucky for my career to actually interact with female scientists who did great things at the PhD level. My first PhD student actually was a lady who did fantastically. And even when I came back to Cameroon, among the PhD students I recruited, I had many ladies part of the team and doing great things. I really believe that women are equipped with the best ability possible to deliver in this field. Now, having said that, there are challenges. And the challenge sometimes is the opportunity, which may not be given to the ladies. And I think it's a big mistake for those leaders in the field who may not be inclined to give them the same opportunity as men because of some concern they may have. And let's be honest, some of those concerns for some of the men is that they may feel like the women working with them may not finish the PhD for one or another reason, and they might doubt whether they will persevere in the long term. I think it's a big mistake, because from what I've seen, 7 years been back in Africa, is that the ladies are really among the best. They have the skills to deliver. And even though they have different profile as the men, they may still adapt. Let me give you one example. One of my first PhD students in Cameroon, she got married during her PhD. She got 2 children, and she defended her PhD very well. She got trained with high skills. She went to Liverpool. She came back, and she's actually leading the unit on functional genomics at the CRADE at the moment. All this is possible. I know it's challenging, but we need definitely to support them by providing them with the right opportunity and give them the training that they need. Capacity building is one of them. And to close, I will also like to highlight the need for funding. if we want them to be leaders in the field, they shouldn't just be postdoc, they shouldn't just stop at the PhD level, but they also need to have funding to establish their own group, own research group. And I think sometimes you don't always have that opportunity. In UK, I know, for example, they have what they call a re-entry grant for women because they acknowledge that some of them have gone to a break after a pregnancy. And so there's a system to encourage them because it's not always the same as for men. So I think we will benefit by having more women involved and by supporting them, by giving them opportunities and by facilitating even access to funding to them because they have the ability as the same way as for men. They just need that support and that encouragement. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Professor Charles. I'll be back to you. There is a lot to learn from you. To you, Dr. Edith Limbaso, as an early career research scientist working on vector-borne diseases, you have been achieved so much. How has your journey been? Can you mention to us your experience and success enablers?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you for the invitation. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, you're clear.
Okay. Well, my journey for me has not really been easy, as it mentioned by these senior scientists who've talked about it. But I think growing up for me, I knew I was going to be a scientist because I used to be interested. I mean, I used to be curious about my environment. And I remember mentioning to my dad that I was going to pursue a degree in science, my first degree in science. He looked at me and he was like, yeah, I know you can do it. Though, you know, being given that one encouragement that you can do it is what pushed me to, you know, to my next step. And so I pursued a BSc in science, and completion of my first degree, you know, there's that confusion. You're not sure on where you're going to step on. And looking around, I identified KEMRI and they gave me a chance to, you know, there was a volunteer program. And I got a chance there to, you know, look around, visit several labs to be able to identify what exactly I was, you know, I was going to pursue. And there I picked my interest, and my interest being in the vector-borne diseases. So right now I'm working on arboviruses, that is viruses transmitted by vectors like mosquitoes and sandflies. Well, and it's been very interesting. It's been a long journey. I've pursued my master's in this area and also my PhD. And talking about that, joining KEMRI was like the basis for me because that is where I got my mentors. And I think, I don't know if I should call it being lucky or because my main mentor has been Professor Rosemary Sang. This is a woman who is in this vector-borne disease field. And, you know, it was easy watching her, not even talking to her, watching her, moving with her, being guided by her. And that is why I am where I am today. And also at some point when I was pursuing my PhD, I happened to be at ISIPE, being led by the DG being Dr. Segenet Kelemu, who was very, you know, supportive about women. During that period when I was pursuing my PhD, I remember we used to have these several meetings, you know, discussions, conversations about, you know, things to do, supporting women, programs to do with, you know, encouraging women to apply. And I remember at that point in time, that's when I, you know, I tried an opportunity, and I was one of the recipients of the Laurel for Women in Science at that point in time. So you can imagine how, you know, how it elevated me at that point in time. You know, it made me, you know, feel like, oh, you mean this field is also available for everyone? And from there on, you know, I've had many other people who've held my hand, even the male, you know, also I've had Dr. David Twasi, Dr. Joel Lutomia, who've worked with me through this journey. Of course, it's not that easy. There's a lot of dedication. There is a lot of patience. There's a lot of hard work. You know, being a woman at a certain age, you need to get married, you need to have children. Well, you have to decide, you have to plan when, you know, but also being guided and having these mentors who are very supportive. I think having discussions with them on how to go about things, I think, you know, is what has moved me to this point. Also having a very supportive family. I have a very supportive husband, and it has moved me to, you know, this point. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Edith. A follow on that. Considering the systems and structures in place, what can women scientists do to create enabling environment where they thrive in and succeed in fighting against vector-borne diseases? We've listened to Dr. Yassine that opportunities are there, but few women are applying. What can you say on that?
Well, as I was mentioning, like the International, Institute of, ISIPE, during the, the period when I was doing my PhD, when I was a PhD scholar then, we used to have many meetings, and I encourage that. I think that is the way to go. Have a lot of conversation to discuss about this, establish visible role models that people can, that the young scientists like us can be able to see, like the panelists that we have right now, listen to what they are talking about. I listen to them and I feel like, okay, even me, I'm moving and I'm hoping I'll get there someday and be able to talk, like them. I also believe you cannot work in isolation. You have to work with people. There's a lot of capacity building that needs to be done to make that environment very, even for everyone. But for me, mentorship is key. We need to, take our time, hold hands, take the young people, upcoming scientists, encourage them, show them, share the opportunities that are available for them, take them for these trainings and all. And I believe, it will give them that opportunity to have that even playing field for them.
Thank you, Dr. Edith. Back to you, Jessie.
Thank you, Christina. So I will go back to Dr. Jashri. So we know that there's many initiatives out there. So apart from the Women in Vector Control, PAMCA Women in Vector Control, we have Women in Malaria, we have women leaders in global health, etc. My question is, according to you, what has been the impact of these initiatives?
I mean, like Yassine and quite a few others, I'm a mentor on the PAMCA one as well, and definitely being able to see, just talking to them, and as Dr. Edith mentioned as well, just being able to talk to somebody that is like you and going to the same struggles as you and has succeeded in overcoming that makes a big difference. And that's, I think, the one thing is just being able to bounce off ideas and having a friendly ear that can hear what your problems are and can give you a solution because they've been through the struggle as well. I think that makes a big difference. But the other thing I think as well is also just training people, especially women scientists, to be strong enough and to be able to stand up to, I know we have male allies, but we also don't have male allies that are very strong, that push back, but it's actually just building a strong cadre of female scientists that are confident in their findings and in their decision making. And I think that's a critical thing about all the mentorship and leadership programs that we have directed at women, is just building a confident lot of women cadres and health workers that can go forward and change the world and confidently do this without having to take a back seat. I mean, I think that is really probably the most important thing that I find with initiatives.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Jashri. So Professor Charles, I had that great opportunity to closely collaborate with you, and as the executive director of CREED, I know that you are having a lot of, I would say, strategies in uplifting women scientists. So can you kindly share with the audience what efforts you make at CREED in uplifting women? And also, if you can also share, to your personal point of view, the ways in which men can support women within their careers. It will be good. Over to you.
Yes, thank you for that, Jessie. I think maybe a few things we do at CREED is, first of all, to ensure that we have a gender balanced recruitment process. When we are recruiting PhD students to start with, we would like to give as much opportunity to females as male candidates. And we had a batch of students we recruited 2 years ago, around 10 of them. And out of the 10, we were not far from 50-50. and one of the top was actually a female candidate, and we recruited them during the training process. We also give them equal opportunity. Just 2 weeks ago, we had 2 PhD students who came back from the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine. We had 1 female, 1 male, and previously, actually, we sent 2 females over there to really have a training in high tech to capacitate them, because we really believe that it's only through capacity building, equipping them, giving them the right skill, high level skills, that they will be able to become not only scientists, but independent scientists and future leaders. Because as one of my colleagues said earlier, we don't just want the females to be vector biologists, but to be among the leaders in the field. If they are leaders, they could also train more. They will be role model. And we really are passionate about that. So these are some of the things that we do. Recently, we had the funding from the Gates Foundation in terms of developing mathematical modelers across the continent. We were recruiting 15 PhD students. We also ensure that we have 50-50 male females balance in that process. So we are training them at that level. We really want to carry on doing that by capacitating them, and we really think this is where the key lies. Now, how can we ensure they succeed? I think we also need to have a level of understanding, because there could be times where a female scientist may come to you and say that she's getting married, or she's expecting a baby, and she might need to take a time off. I don't think you should not pay attention to that. Or in contrary, you should be as supportive as possible, allowing her to also go through that phase of life, which is only a transition. It's not a permanent situation. And I think sometimes this is where there's no understanding, and some of the female may be frustrated. So I think what we do is to show understanding at this level. Of course, it's also good for the females to inform in advance, or when you say in advance, to engage a communication with the supervisor. I think it's both ways. So overall, by capacitating, by listening, by being supportive, we think we can really contribute to the development of females in the field of vector control and make them leaders in the field in the future. Over to you.
To you, Dr. Corinne, we've listened to your nice presentation and promising one and motivational, but like to learn more from you. What are the enabling factors to make you who you are today as a woman, as a mother, as a professional, as a scientist, and as a leader? How are you balancing, and what were the enabling factors?
Thank you very much, Christine, for your question. And you know, it's really interesting when you see what Edith and Jeffrey have just told us, and of course, Professor, who is also a dad of 4 daughters. So there are many factors, and of course that has helped me to become who I am. And as Edith said, first of all, it's the family. And of course, my dad also had a really big role for me to choose to go for science, for medicine, because, you know, we have been discussing who, you know, when you are a child, they usually ask you, who do you want to be? How do you want to be? And then you have the parents, the siblings that are helping you achieving your dream and your goal. And then, of course, my family, my husband, as well as my siblings. And then, of course, I'm living also in Rwanda, which is really the perfect country to be born as a girl, because we are having an enabling policy environment, as well as when you look at all the policies, all the government is doing to empower women, also empower girls so that they can also be able to choose science, to go in STEAM. You can see all the development that the government is doing. And then, of course, partners also that are supporting the country priorities and needs. And then professionally, of course, as Edith, I've come to some friends, some women. And what is also quite interesting is sometimes you are even, you think that, when you find a woman supervisor or a woman colleague, sometimes those are the ones that are really putting you down, that are really putting all the barriers for you to progress, for you to become the person. So for me, as Edith and others, it's the family, the country, the environment, as well as the friends and connections that are helping. And of course, as you know, for a woman to be at the level where I am, it's we have to work maybe 10 times more and to be committed, and then also to every time prove that we are where we are because we are competent, because we work hard, but not because we are just there because they want to increase the proportion of women on that position. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Corinne. And I want to welcome Rosalia to do a presentation on WiVC. And thank you all the speakers for your sharing your experiences and your enabling environment and factors. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll try to be as brief as possible and give an overview on strengthening the role of women in the control of vector-borne diseases. I hope I'm audible enough.
Yes, you are, Rosalia.
Yes,
All right, thank you. Okay, so PAMCA has a vision to see an Africa that is free of vector-borne diseases, and the Women in Vector Control Initiative was founded with a mission to empower women and more women to combat vector-borne diseases in Africa, hence by creating an enabling environment to enact a shift in the current paradigm. I'll now take you through why gender is quite imperative for health. And this is because good health and well-being is at the heart of the Agenda 2030 by achieving gender equity as a prerequisite for sustainable development, which ties in well with Sustainable Development Goal 5 on gender equity, Sustainable Development Goal 10 on reduced inequalities, and finally Sustainable Development Goal 16 on inclusivity of societies and strong institutions. Most of these arguments are based on effectiveness and representation due to the fact that we are facing societal and health issues. And this brings about or calls about the need for diversity in terms of workforce and talents for effective solutions, because with only having males fighting or combating vector-borne diseases, it has been quite impeding. And women are also more likely to consider a broad range of needs, interests, priorities for all in all societies. And this is because they bring a different perspective to the table. And when it comes to women in research, there seems to be a leaky pipeline whereby it shows that women account for over 50% of bachelor graduates as well as master's graduates. However, at PhD level, women's involvement has reduced to 43%, which means that males or men surpasses this. And this has also been observed when you go up the decision-making level or either the research level, where it shows that women only account for 28%. And this is quite a significant decrease or difference as compared to bachelors and graduates. So meaning that the 72% is accounted for men, and this is quite worrisome. Now I'll take you through the PAMCA Women in Vector Control priority areas. First up, we have the mentorship, which is founded to empower African women leaders. And this is mostly structured mentorship. And we currently have a mentorship that's running, which is mentee driven. And in addition to that, to structured mentorship, we also would like women within the different African countries to instill peer mentorship in their institutions or either within the PAMCA Women in Vector Control chapters. Secondly, we have the capacity building, which targets trainings and courses on leadership. Last year, we had our first, sorry, not our first, but we held a leadership workshop 3 days prior to the PAMCA 8th conference in Kigali. And then we also target writing skills, such as proposal and manuscript writing. And then we have professional development, which targets confidence building of women, because we acknowledge that this is also one of the impeding factors whereby women tend to lack a bit of confidence. And then we have the specialized skills-based courses that targets different needs for women in different countries. And then thirdly, we have networking, collaboration, and visibility. Under here, we have the recognition of Women in Vector Control Excellence Award. We have awarded 2 consecutive years so far. The first year was 2021, and then last year as well. And then we have the expertise database and informal communication forums and discussion forums. And then we have the Women in Vector Control social media engagement, where we have a Twitter account, we have a LinkedIn account, and then we also share some activities on YouTube. Then we have the Women in Vector Control Symposia. We have the Women in Vector Control PAMCA chapter initiatives. We are currently working on this to implement chapters, and certain countries have implemented this Women in Vector Control chapter, but the aim is to have each African country have a PAMCA Women in Vector Control chapter. And then we also have the travel support, where we offer travel grants for the PAMCA conference and other activities, such as the one we had last year during the conference, and then also to Cameroon CREED. And then we have identification of keynote, panel speaking, and session leads. And this also falls in well with this webinar today, where we have women, because we also acknowledge that in most cases, we have a lot of males on either keynote speaking or either on the panel sessions as well. So we are trying to sort of reorient that. And then we have the gender policy, where we're working on developing policies or advocating for policies such as the sexual harassment or bullying policy. Yes, some of these policies are available, but are they implemented? I think that's a worrisome question, because we have them, but there is a need to implement them and ensure that they are enforced. And then we're also working on the PAMCA Women in Vector Control gender policy. And then lastly, we have the Women in Vector Control non-professional empowerment. This is actually one of the important key activities, but I believe it's quite overlooked because most of the activities focuses on professional women or women at the professional level. And this is a need base as well, where we're trying to engage women at the community level. I mean, these are the women who are the primary caretakers of homes, who primarily bear the burden of vector-borne diseases. And there's also a need to engage them in activities such as IRS or either links distribution. And when it comes to IRS especially, women are quite overlooked, and this can be beneficial to engage them because, first of all, they get to actively engage in an activity that could help them and those around them, and then also for monetary benefits. And then in addition to that, we also look at school outreach activities on vector control, whereby we're trying to mobilize at the grassroots and instill vector-borne disease knowledge within the young ones. So I'll take you through the current activities of the PAMCA Women in Vector Control. I spoke about mentorship program. We launched our first mentorship cohort last year during the PAMCA conference in Kigali. and it is named Lift Her 2. We have 20 mentees selected and then 18 mentors. And it has been a success so far. So we plan to graduate them during this year's conference. And then in terms of trainings, capacity building, we held a training in at CREED last year in Cameroon, and we supported 4 women in vector control, that being 2 regional coordinators from PAMCA and 2 women from 2 different countries. And then we also held a leadership on effective communication and professional development 3 days prior to the PAMCA conference in Kigali last year, where we supported 25 women from 16 different African countries. Yes. And then we have the annual excellence recognition. The image on our left shows the first awardees, which were awarded virtually in 2021. There were 5. And then in 2022 in Kigali, we awarded 6 women, 2 per each category, that being early career, mid-career, and senior career. And then we have, we have the discussion forums, webinars, and symposia. In 2020, we held a webinar on why gender inclusivity is important in the elimination of vector-borne diseases, where we featured 3 women and 1 male ally. And then last year, during the Kigali conference, we also held a symposium, a roundtable, which featured several women and a male ally, or male allies also from the audience. And then we have the travel grant. Last year, we supported 5 women to attend the PAMCA conference, and that is for them to present their work. These are women who had applied to attend the conference for presentations, and they had applied for this travel grant, which we awarded them, and it covered the return air ticket, accommodation and meals, as well as visa processing, and they were from 5 different countries. And we also intend to support 5 women again this year, so the call will be out soon. Please watch out on our social media pages. And then we also have the Women in Vector Control microsite. This is where you are likely to find a lot of information that pertains the women in vector control in Africa. And that's now database for both formal and informal interaction. So please do look us up and learn more about us. So the desired outcome or goal for the PAMCA Women in Vector Control initiative is to have African women that have capabilities in terms of skills, technical know-how who have built on their confidence and who have access to equal opportunities as men in order to advance their careers in vector control, as well as further contribute to sustainability in the vector control and elimination of programs in Africa. Well, I've come to the end of the Women in Vector Control overview. This is our website. Please look it up. And then we also have our Twitter handle for both the Women in Vector Control and PAMCA at large. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosalia. So we welcome you to ask any questions in the chat box. Some questions were asked and the panelists answered them. So you can see them in the tab answered questions. But there's one comment there from David Mburu, who said it's not a question really, but a viewpoint is that we can also encourage colleagues to include interns and technologists, especially women inclusion in published work. This can go a long way in uplifting young and upcoming women working in vector-borne diseases. So this was a comment left in the chat box. So if you have other questions, please feel free to ask. So I have questions to all the panelists. So my question is, statistics have it that entomologists tend to leave the profession and engage in unrelated ventures, yet you have remained and grown your career successfully. So how have you managed to remain in the field, and what can you advise the young upcoming women in entomology? So this question is addressed to everyone, and if someone between the participants has the answer, you are welcome to raise the hand or to write in the Q&A box. Over to you.
So Jessie, may I suggest that Damaris, who is our senior entomologist, responds?
Thank you, indeed. Damaris, over to you.
Hey, Dr. Corinne, I thought that you'll be able to respond to this. So one of the things that I think we need to admit that vector-borne diseases are extremely endemic in our continent. And if we are not there to address them, there will be no one to address them for us as learned people, as people who have gone to school. So if we expect that people to come from out there and address this, then it's a disservice to ourselves. We'll never ever get to elimination. So one of the reasons that especially myself, and I know many others, we like to be the continent to ensure that is to ensure that these vector-borne diseases become a thing of the past. So there are most of the things that I could say from my end that have been very, very useful is the support system that you get from colleagues, but also the personal initiative where you have personal drive, and therefore making you to ensure that these things are done. So one of the things that should make us live and work in the continent is because we know from experience that the effect these diseases have for our community, but more so understanding and accepting the fact that it's us, it will take us to ensure that they are no longer there. So those are among the reasons, especially for me, that I'm in the continent, and also admitting, maybe I want to give an example. Malaria used to be in the US, but it's no longer there. What did they do differently? Therefore, having gotten that knowledge, can we implement it back in Africa? So for me, staying in the continent is to ensure that my relatives, my family, my friends, our people do not suffer from these things. And we know the resources are there, the platforms are there, we are only not utilizing them. How can we make them better for us as women, for us as male colleagues, for everyone to be able to thrive and ensure? So it's the personal drive within me, but also the fact that there are mentors, senior people who keep telling you that press on, move on, and together we'll succeed.
Thank you very much, Damaris.
Maybe Corinne can add.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think Damaris has really well responded to the question, and I'm really happy and glad that she accepted, because you feel the passion, you feel what she's doing, and as I say earlier, it's important that we be involved, we be on the table of decisions, so that we can plan and then tailor all the intervention based to what's benefit to us and for us to eradicate all these diseases, including malaria. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Curry.
This question is for the four female speakers. And Prof, you just listen so that you hear the voices of the women. How has your institutions considered gender inclusion at decision-making levels? How have you worked with men considering entomology is a male-dominated field? Dr. Joshri, you can start.
So it's really interesting at the institution that I'm based. They've had a major drive to have try to address gender equality. So there are many women in senior positions, but not in the vector control unit. It is really quite male dominated in the entomology section. So trying to work with them in some respects is a challenge. Sometimes you have to get them to respect you, and also, especially going out into the field, you have to show that as a female, you're strong enough to go into the field, you can do what they can do, you don't need special treatment, or you can't do what they can do. So it's definitely making sure that they respect you and that you show them the respect as well, and that you show that they're capable, that you're capable of achieving what is required. I mean, I think for me that's definitely been one of the biggest challenges, to show that, as a female, it's not that you can't do what they can do in the field, and that you need different sort of resources to be able to achieve. So I think in some respects at the institution that I am, just because there's been such a push to have gender equality, there's definitely a lot more females in leadership positions, but definitely not in the vector unit itself. A lot of the women are based in the lab rather than doing the lab work, the field work, and that needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Dr. Joshri. Dr. Yassine?
Thank you. So for me, I mean, Speak Up Africa was founded by myself, and we have a very strong female leadership team. So institutionally, though, for many years, it was not something that we had formalized, but last year we developed a gender equality and social inclusion strategy to specifically ensure that we were taking into account a gendered approach across all of our programs, in addition to ensuring that it was a key decision making process, and that we were ensuring that integration. In terms of the work we do is mainly around advocacy, but we do work with a lot of researchers and scientists and doctors, and many coming from the technical community. And one thing we've learned is that, in order to be an effective leader and to be able to significantly contribute, it's important for us women to be able to clearly articulate, the value add that we have, and to be able to, position ourselves as the leaders that we are, and not be necessarily scared or overwhelmed, but rather just be very confident in what we bring to the table, whether it's whatever that expertise may be. So what we've found is that as advocates, we have been able to do that effectively across the audiences with which we work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yassine. Dr. Edith, can we hear from you?
Thank you very much. Here at Kenya Medical Research Institute, KEMRI, yes, we have women in leadership. And I must say that I'm very lucky to have Dr. Damaris Matoke here at KEMRI. So being an entomologist, so I don't even have to do anything. I just watch her, what she does. She goes to the field, she does everything. And, it gives me that encouragement that if she can do that, then also I can do it. So I'm lucky to have you, Dr. Damaris Matoke. Just get to know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Edith. Dr. Corinne?
Yeah, thank you very much. So maybe what I will try to respond that on the trying to not focus only on the entomologists, but on the global health space, especially the malaria community. So although, as I was saying, that we are having 70% of women that are really the backbone, the spine and the neck of the global health, we only have 25% that are playing a role as in leadership. And I think that it's not enough. And of course, we have seen that through the partnership and through different organizations, we are seeing that most of the institutions are trying to become gender transformative, gender responsive in terms of, first of all, having women, at the mid-level of the institution. But of course, at the leadership role, it's really rare. And of course, we are having some, like for instance, PAMCA, we are seeing also with Yassine. So basically, it's always institutions which are not within the formal or existing or traditional institution like the UN and etc. It's usually institutions that are really created, developed by women, and then this is where you see that they're really taking action. You are seeing that action are being translated, not just talking about gender equity, gender diversity, but they're really talking, working the show. And what is also very important is we are also seeing that in the global space, most of our donors, our philanthropy foundation, I can give the example of the Gates Foundation. So for you to be funded, you know, there are some requirements, and this includes, for instance, you are required to show that you will be a gender responsive, gender transformative project, that you also will include all the diversity so that there is equity and equality. And we are seeing that those are really, for me, the factors that are really facilitated women to be on the highest level and the leadership role in malaria control, but we are still very far and there is a lot to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Corinne. Professor, you've heard from the 4 women. Can you sum up on this?
Yes. Yeah, should I go ahead?
Yes.
Yeah, just to say that really we need to be as supportive as possible by providing equal opportunity to both women and males, and to ensure that we also train them to the highest level possible, and to ensure that tomorrow they could be taking the lead in the field of vector biology. And so removing any barriers really in the development, that's something that we need to do, and that will come also with mentorship. And I think it's so important, the role that women in vector control are playing, because we really need a role model. Just like Dr. Edith Limbasso was saying about Damaris. Looking at Damaris, she's encouraged, and I think we need more of that, not only regionally, but maybe on the continent, to have more leaders, female leaders who can serve as role model. So that's really something that we think we should be doing more, and that will start by training at every level, early career, mid-career, and also have more seniors. So if we do have that, I think there's a space for women to thrive in vector control, in vector biology as entomologists. As far as we are concerned, myself, I would like to support and continue supporting as much as possible, because we need more women. Thank you very much.
So much, Prof. Any final remarks from from the 5 speakers? Any final remarks?
So maybe I will start first of all to thank PAMCA, as well as the excellent work that the women in vector control are doing to promote, to empower, and then also to inspire. As Edith said, when you see Damaris, you are really inspired, and then you want to become like her. And we are also seeing that with the network that you are doing, all the chapters that we are creating in the region will really empower and build capacity of women in vector control. And this is what is really needed, because for us, for the RBM partnership, for us to be able to end malaria, we need women on the table at the decision level. So I want to thank you, and of course, wish you in advance an happy Women's Day. Thank you.
So I would like to echo Corinne's comments that I would really like to thank PAMCA for having this webinar and wish everybody a happy Women's Day for the 8th as well. But I also think that this is just a starting point. This is a flat platform where we started the discussions. And if we want to have any impact, we need to learn from these discussions, and we need to move forward. So we need to ensure that we can show that we've had some impact. We have had improved the number of women leaders that there have been more postdocs that have gone into leadership roles, that we are having some impact. I mean, I know it's very aspirational, but I think we need to aim high if we're going to try to make any impact. So thanks again. And it was really great, but I do think that we need to have some impact moving forward. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Also echoing, thank you to PAMCA for this webinar that was very insightful. And certainly I was able to learn a lot from my fellow panelists and the keynote speeches that were given. From a Speak Up Africa perspective, I think just to reiterate our commitment to working in partnership, working with PAMCA, working with the RBM partnership, and working with all the other partners that are present here. As was mentioned in one of the comments, I think it was more, all of these organizations do a great work. How do we continue to come together? And this was a great demonstration of how that happens. And to also echo what was just said, I think we need to use this as a starting point and continue to build on what we've started, whether through the mentorship programs, whether through other platforms that are already existing. So just wanted to also echo my availability to continue this great work that has been started, and to ensure that women have the place that they deserve to have and should rightfully have in decision-making spaces and leadership positions. Thank you.
I think for me, I would like to, thank PAMCA for this, organizing for this meeting. Thank you very much for inviting me to attend. You can be sure I've learned a lot, and also sharing, my growth. It makes me feel like, oh yeah, so I can be in this panel too. So, okay, what I would like to tell all, every woman wherever they are is like, if any human can do, I think we can also do it, not just because we are women, but because we are also human. So I think we should always strive to do, our best in wherever we are. And I would like to, I would love to attend such meetings, because I'm not there yet, I'm walking that path, and I would like to be there at some point. Thank you very much. Thank you.
For me, I would just like to encourage the women and further highlight that they are equipped with what is needed to succeed, and that they should have that confidence that they can do it. Also encourage the men to be as supportive and to see the women as equal partner in this journey to help control vector-borne diseases. And because I believe that united we stand, it's not like we should be fighting each other, but if we have everyone on board, women and men, we stand a greater chance to achieve a greater reduction of the burdens of these diseases. So I think this is my encouragement to all. I thank PAMCA for inviting me to this panel, and I wish every woman on the webinar a happy International Women's Day tomorrow. All the best.
Thank you, Prof, for wrapping up, and thank you to all the speakers. I am sure attendees who attended this webinar have learned a lot from your experience. You can go on.
Okay, I think mine is to just wrap up this, and sorry, we've taken a few minutes past the time. Kindly allow us to stop in the next 3 minutes. Thanks a lot, and thanks a lot to PAMCA, first of all, through our interim director, Dr. Emma Orefua, who have allowed us to host such a webinar, and also give our opening remarks and the support we're receiving so far through PAMCA to keep on doing this. And thanks a lot, the PAMCA Secretariat too, who have supported preparing this. And more so to thank you, our speakers, our panelists, we really feel honored because all of you, even though it was a short notice, you're quick to say, yes, I can do this. And thanks for supporting through other initiatives that we are doing, the mentorship program, the other activities that we are currently running. We really appreciate you, panelists and other participants. Participants online, I think there is a moment where almost 200 attendees. So we really appreciate for you attending this webinar. One of the things that we look forward is to keep on doing similar activities, and also I believe based on the echo and also remarks made by our panelists, the ability for us, we are all in diverse institutions, all doing diverse things, but all of them geared towards the fight against vector-borne diseases. You might be in the parasitology, you might be an immunologist, you might be a molecular biologist, you might be an accountant that is supporting this field of fighting against vector-borne diseases. It's not a must that you are an entomologist. So PAMCA looks at that broadly, and we are happy to have everyone on board, both male and female. So for us is the ability to create the synergy that is needed, whereby males are supporting women and women are working in harmony or in a way that is acceptable to ensure that we deliver on the agenda of working towards elimination of vector-borne diseases in the continent. The various institutions represented here, let's come together, be one body that ensures that this fight comes to an end. So I really want to thank you. PAMCA will be rolling out more activities as we go by. So we look forward to be interacting more and also to be posting more of the activities that we are doing online and also calling on you. So one of the flagship projects that we want to do end of this year as PAMCA, not end of this year, in September, is our annual conference. We like to invite all of you to kindly participate. The call for abstract is coming to an end this month. Kindly ensure that you submit an abstract to attend our conference, which will be on 17th to 21st of September in Ethiopia. Kindly submit an abstract or prepare a symposia or just be an attendee of the conference. So you're all invited, but more so women in vector control activities. We plan to have a lot more during the conference. For us, we will look forward to have you, all of you, the participants, our panelists. We look forward to having you participating in these activities, be it a training, be it the mentorship program, be it the visibility activities of travel allowance and excellence. Kindly encourage your colleagues. If you yourself are not applying or it doesn't fit you, encourage your colleagues, senior and the young ones, to apply, especially the Excellence Awards. We want to map up the women who are doing excellent things and ensure we appreciate them, motivate them, and also give them the visibility that they deserve. So as PAMCA, we are gladly going to do this in September, and therefore we invite you. The other thing is the mentorship program. We kindly encourage your young people to apply as mentees, and also we request you as a senior excellent person who's been working in vector-borne diseases to apply as a mentor, because if you don't apply, then who else will support our mentorship program? So we call on you, both young and senior, to support us or to work in this. You're not doing this for Damaris or for an individual. We are doing this for our continent. We are doing this for our Africa. We are doing this to our fathers, our sisters, our siblings, and generations to come. Let's make Africa a vector-borne, free of vector-borne diseases. Kindly, I request that this partnership continues from now henceforth. So I thank you. Happy International Women's Day for the women that are here, and for the men that are here, kindly wish your women happy International Women's Day. Get a rose for them, celebrate your colleagues, celebrate your juniors, and let's do this together. Thanks a lot. PAMCA wishes you a lovely day tomorrow. Thank you. Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
all.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Very much.
Thank you all.
And bye.
Bye. Thanks.